This is Project 4. This is going to be video 4b, and this is where we left off. Okay, I've got a shapefile, and the I have my attribute table showing the information I want to. Okay. One thing I want to do though, before I do too much more, is I'm interested in how many acres of forest I have, how many acres of developed land is in the county, how many acres of this pasture. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to open my attribute table and I'm going to add a field. This field I'm going to call acres. I'm going to make it a long integer to hold the data. And then I'm going to right click on that heading and I'm going to calculate geometry. And everything here looks good, except I want this in US acres instead of that. So I'm going to click that. It's going to run. It's calculated my acres, okay, for each type of land cover. I'm going to close this. Okay. At this point, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to turn this into a layout view. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go move. I'm going to move it to layout view. I'm going to add labels. I'm going to do some stuff, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have turned this to landscape view because I think Anderson County fits better. I've added a title and changed the font a little bit and stuff on it. I have inserted my legend and I've cleaned it up so that it only shows my land use types. I've got my north arrow. I've inserted a scale. I've set the scale to 5 miles. I've inserted my map credits. I've got a lot of blank space here, and I think one thing, not blank, there's information, but I'm going to add a few labels to maybe some of these towns and some of the regions and see if that makes my map a little bit more interesting. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I added a few labels to this map, and I like that better. It gives me a little bit more information. There's Oak Ridge, Clinton, Norris I've got in the wrong place, so I'll move it up there. Norris, Rocky Top, which used to be Lake City. I've labeled the Cumberland Mountains. This whole region here is the Cumberland Mountains, and this whole region through here is the Ridge and Valley. I can tell at a glance that most of my forests are in the Cumberland Mountains, and most of my pasture and developed areas are down in the Ridge and Valley. Okay. I think one thing I want to do is insert a locator map. So I'm going to insert a data frame. You'll see it pops up down here. When it's bold like this, that means it's active, and that's what I'm working with. So I'm going to add data to that data frame, and I'm going to go up here to my, let's see, it's in a different folder. In my tiger boundaries and under counties, I'm going to add this Tennessee counties shapefile. You can see what I've got there. Okay. I'm going to drag it down here and resize it so that it kind of fits. It just needs to let people get an idea of where we're working. Um, and I'm going to have to resize this. I'm going to make it about 1 to 15 million. You can see it fits in there now. Okay. If I right click on this and go to properties, that's not what I want. If I right click on my data frame and go to properties, you'll see there's that extent indicator tab, and I can add this. It's the only other layer I have. Move it over here. Say OK. Say OK. Let me minimize this. You'll see my extent indicator pops up on there. So now I've got a little map that shows the extent here. Okay. I need to make this layer active, so I'm going to activate it and take my where I can work on this layer again. Okay. Okay. So this is what I have at this point. And one thing I don't like right now is it's kind of a clean map, but I've got a lot of empty space out there. Not much going on. So I'm gonna add a base map. And I'm going to add this one that says terrain with labels. I like that. It doesn't dominate my map. It's just going to add some texture and background to it. And so this is what it looks like. You can see I've added that base map. It's almost a hillshade sort of a map. And I'm looking over here for where it is. I guess it's still loading. Pause while it's doing that. Okay, so it loaded everything to the map. One thing you can see, it brought in a lot of labels. Some of them are interesting. Windrock Mountain, Smoky Mountain, some of these things. Some of the highways are labeled. But I think for my map, that makes it too cluttered. One thing I like about this map is I can turn off the reference layer and those labels go away. So now I've got some texture in that area around it. It adds a little information about what things look like around it. You can see at a glance the difference between the Cumberland Mountains and the Ridge and Valley. Um, One thing I am going to do though is on this layer with my land use data, I'm going to go to the properties. Afraid this is going to crash any minute. And under my display, see right now this layer is opaque, but I'm going to make that about 20% transparent. And what that does is it allows that texture to show through this map. So I've still got my color information, but now I've also got some of that topography coming through, which I think makes for a more interesting map. Okay. Okay. Last thing I want to do is I've got some space here I can work with. And what I think I want to do is add a graph, a pie chart that shows me the acreage for each of these different land uses, each of these 4 land uses. Okay. So keep your fingers crossed. This is like the 8th time today I've tried this, but I'm going to right click on this, open my attribute table. There is a button for creating a graph, and I want a pie chart. So I'm going to click on this. This is the layer. The value field I want is acres. Remember we created that a while ago. So far so good. My sort field, I'll make my type. I'm not sure that matters a whole lot. My label field, I'm going to make type, and then what's nice is it adds the label to this little legend that comes with my graph. Okay. As far as the symbology goes, this didn't work for me last night, but this is nice because it's just matching with the symbology of my layers. So the colors, the forest is green, the developed is red, the same as on my map as a whole. So I'm going to go to next. I don't really need a title. I'm going to get rid of the title for this thing. I am going to use a title here in my legend, though, and call this acreage. I can move this thing around, for instance, like that. I think that looks good, but every time I bring it into the map, it doesn't work right. So I'm going to leave it here. You can play around with that. I'm going to click Finish. There's my graph. I think it looks pretty good. And if I right-click on it anywhere, I can add this to layout. In other words, the layout view of my map. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this. There is my graph. I'm going to size it to fit. Okay, maybe a little bit smaller. And tuck her in there somewhere maybe. And now I've got a graph that shows me the acreage of forest and developed land and so forth. Um, I think it's interesting you can look and see that at a glance that almost not quite a quarter of Anderson County is considered developed land. That's kind of interesting. Over half of it's forest, maybe 20% is hay pasture, and then we've of course got some water. Okay, that's pretty much a finished map. I might play around here with these margins a little bit and square things up and things like that. But basically, that's a map. And I think it shows what I set out to show. It's got land use, and I've narrowed the land use down to what I think are the most important types. You can see there's just very little there that's not covered. I've I've set up my layout view, which I think works. I added a base map to give it some texture and some background. I added a locator map, which I could even size down a little bit more if I need to. I've got my map credits on here. I've got my north arrow. I've got a nice clean legend. I've got my scale bar. That says 4 miles. It moved on me. I'm going to move that up just a little bit, make that 5 miles. And I've created a graph this time that breaks down for me at a glance how much of Anderson County is what land use. So I'm ready to save this map. I'm going to save this as, I'm going to call this Anderson 3. Save. If I want to export this map now, I can export it as a PDF. Okay, and I'm going to call it Anderson 3. And this map looks pretty good, but I really like it once you export them to a PDF. Okay, it's finished exporting. If I want to see that PDF, I can click on this. There it is. It's one of my recent files. If I open that up, and here's the map I created. And I think you can see it in a PDF form. It looks even better than it does in GIS. All the information is on there. There's my graph. Yeah, of course, you can zoom in and stuff here if you want to on your PDF, but I think that makes for a nice map. You send that, put that in my Dropbox, or if you want to save a copy for yourself for printing and so forth. But that's it. And we set out what we did what we set out to do. We created a map showing the land cover for Anderson County, Tennessee. We even added a little chart breaking it down by acreage. We put in a locator map. We added a nice background. So I'm going to call this complete. Good luck with your project, and I will see you and we can work on it together in class. So, bye-bye.